Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into a book that is infamous.
I think that's the right word for it.
For sure.
Yeah.
And not just for its story, but for the documented physical damage it seems to inflict on its readers.
We aren't just talking about feeling a little bit uncomfortable.
No, not at all. We're talking about reported, sustained psychological distress. I've seen people call it a genuine fright marathon that actually cost them sleep.
For 48 hours, in some cases, that's a pretty high price to pay for a novel.
It really is.
And that's our subject today. The 2014 horror novel The Troop, which was written by Craig Davidson under the pseudonym Nick Cutter.
So what's our mission with this deep dive?
Our mission is to really understand the deliberate design behind this thing. We're going to try and dissect what we're calling the architecture of affordable dread.
Architecture of affordable dread. I like that. And this isn't some cheap, disposable shock fiction, is it? The credentials here are, well, they're impeccable.
They really are. The Troop won the very first James Herbert Award for horror writing back in 2015.
And it got the endorsement that, it's the one that truly matters in this space.
The enthusiastic approval of Stephen King.
Right.
And you have to understand that King recommendation is a commercial and a critical game changer. Just think about it for a second. King is famously productive. He reads something like 80 books a year.
80? Wow.
Yeah. So for him to single this one out, to call it old school horror at its best, that instantly converts what could just be seen as low-cost genre fiction into something else entirely.
It becomes high-quality, must-read narrative horror.
Exactly. It's a signal to the wider reading public that this book, it's worth the potential trauma you're about to put yourself through.
And it certainly delivered on that trauma promise. Commercially, it's had this huge, viral, grassroots success.
It's famously been dubbed TikTok's favorite horror novel.
Which tells you everything, really. It tells you all about its ability to generate these widespread, highly shareable physiological outcomes. People are literally filming their reactions to it.
And that's it. The book's capacity to disrupt your actual life becomes its primary marketing tool. It's a book sold on the promise of nausea and sleeplessness.
It's a wild concept.
And that viral success, of course, has led to it migrating to other media. James Wan's Atomic Monster Studio is developing the film adaptation right now.
So this calculated terror will be hitting the big screen soon.
Reaching an even broader and probably unsuspecting audience.
Okay, let's unpack the core premise then. The thing that sets up this whole psychological trap. Cutter taps into some really deep-seated cultural fears.
He does. He takes the classic setup of isolation and youth, the whole Lord of the Flies paradigm, and then he injects this terrifyingly plausible bioengineered threat into it.
So where does the story actually begin?
It begins with a seemingly predictable scene of order. You've got a camping trip in the Canadian wilderness. Scoutmaster Tim Riggs, who is also the town physician.
Oh, so he's a figure of trust, of healing?
Exactly, a very deliberate choice. Yeah. He's leading 5 teenage boys out to the remote Falstaff Island. You've got Kent, Shelley, Newton, Max, and Ephraim.
And that isolation is key.
It is paramount. They are completely beyond help, totally cut off from society and all of its established rules.
And I'm guessing that safe bubble bursts pretty quickly. This isn't just a simple survival story.
Almost instantly. The catalyst arrives in the form of Thomas Paget. He's described as this emaciated, disturbingly pale stranger who is just ravenously hungry.
And he's not just sick.
No, he's carrying an engineered parasite, a mutant tapeworm. And what's crucial for the dread here is the origin story of this parasite. It was created by a scientist, Dr. Clive Edgerton.
For what purpose?
Initially for a rapid black market weight loss scam.
Wait, really? That's fascinating. So it wasn't born from some mythological evil or an alien invasion.
I know.
It's a failed human solution to a vanity problem.
Precisely. That grounding in failed human science, a botched, unethical weight loss trial, is what makes the biohorror so sharp. It's so much more believable.
Because it feels like something that could actually happen.
It spun out of control, as you'd expect, and quickly became a potential military bioweapon. The fear is rooted in human hubris, not some fantasy creature.
And the initial source of safety, Scoutmaster Tim, I take it he doesn't last long.
He's compromised almost immediately. He gets infected and he deteriorates with terrifying speed. Reportedly loses something like 25 pounds in a single night.
Wow.
And his illness doesn't just make him sick, it fundamentally erodes his moral and physical authority.
So when that adult protection collapses, the kids are on their own.
The adolescents, yeah. And they're deliberately drawn as these sharp archetypes. You've got the bully, the nerd, the outright sociopath. They're suddenly forced into making adult life or death decisions.
Which leads directly to mutiny.
It does. They lock the infected Tim in a closet.
Which is really the symbolic end of childhood, isn't it? The moment you lock away the adult figure, the social contract is just gone.
It is the absolute point of no return. The children are now governing a catastrophe, and they're operating without any moral compass other than pure, immediate survival.
And this is where the narrative mechanics, as you said, really start to amplify the terror for you, the reader.
Yes.
You mentioned the structure before, that it uses these reports and documents outside of the main story.
Yeah.
Why do that? Why not just tell the story straight through?
It's a very clever engineering technique to maximize anxiety. The story uses these dual storytelling strands. You have the main narrative, which details all the chaos on the island from the boys' perspective.
Okay.
But this is constantly being intercut with these, what we call extra textual materials. So things like news articles, redacted lab reports, interview transcripts.
So we're reading the cold clinical data about the infection while we're watching the very human drama unfold.
Exactly. And this grounds the horror in this chilling realism. It feels less like a ghost story and more like a documented outbreak you'd see on the news. And crucially, it provides you, the reader, with dreadful knowledge that the boys themselves lack.
So these reports foreshadow what's coming.
Constantly. They'll describe the horrific stages of the infection in cold, scientific terms.
Like that truly infamous and disturbing description of the chimpanzee experiment with the worm.
That's the one.
The reader is given this gruesome minute-by-minute blueprint of how this thing behaves before the boys on the island even know what they're truly dealing with.
And that transforms what could be a passive reading experience into this dreadful active anticipation. The boys are surprised by every new stage of horror, but you are not.
You know what's coming.
You understand the biological imperative driving the infection. You see the absolute inevitability of the catastrophe, and this predictive power forces your brain to process the horror twice. Once clinically through the reports, and then again emotionally when it actually happens to the characters you're following.
Okay, this feels like a good place to pivot.
Yeah.
Let's move from the physical disgust to the root of the lasting psychological trauma. What is the fundamental thematic thread here that causes this deep moral horror?
I think the book is a really brutal fusion of two things. You have classic body horror, the idea that your own body betrays your mind.
Right.
And then you have the catastrophic breakdown of social order. The parasite doesn't just cause a disease, it imposes a monstrous, singular biological imperative on its host.
And that is?
Hunger. Just pure, absolute hunger. And this drives a systemic regression. Any initial order they had just spirals into a state where these hunger-driven bodies dictate all behavior.
So your own biology becomes the enemy.
It becomes the ultimate enemy. It forces you into self-harm, into theft, and eventually into unspeakable acts, all in the name of survival.
And the novel, it really doesn't flinch from demanding that the reader cross lines that are often unspoken taboos, even within the horror genre.
Oh, absolutely not.
Readers repeatedly bring up specific scenes that were just too much, even for people who are hardened horror fans.
That's the animal abuse. We are, of course, referring to the methodically detailed and graphically violent depictions of animal killings, specifically the kitten and the turtle scenes. Those passages are the ones most frequently cited in reviews as the moment where readers just had to close the book or skip pages entirely.
Okay, wait, hold on. Hardcore horror fans are used to seeing the most extreme human gore. Why is the line for animal cruelty so much harder for people to cross? What's the narrative function of those acts? Are they just gratuitous shock tactics?
See, I don't think they are. If they were purely gratuitous, the book wouldn't win prestigious awards. It wouldn't get that praise from Stephen King.
Good point.
The analysis suggests they are critical, calculated devices. They act as mile markers for the character's accelerated moral collapse. Cultural taboos around animal cruelty are so deep-seated,
Right.
So the moment the characters, and it's often the sociopathic boy, Shelley, but also others acting in desperate survival, the moment they commit these acts, it proves just how far their ethical restraint has been completely erased by this biological desperation.
So Cutter is using that cultural taboo as a necessary device. He's trying to exceed the reader's high tolerance for standard violence to show the immediate, irreparable ethical ruin of the group.
Exactly. It's an incredibly efficient shortcut to moral devastation. And the result is that highly reported reader experience of feeling profoundly uncomfortable, of feeling bad after reading this, or even feeling like they did something wrong just by witnessing it.
This trauma actually has a name, doesn't it? Moral injury. How do we define that in the context of, reading a book?
Moral injury happens when you are forced to mentally sanction, or at least witness, these morally devastating acts, these extreme transgressions committed by characters whose survival you are, on some level, invested in.
So it's different than just being sad or scared.
Very different. Unlike simple emotional distress, moral injury carries an ethical burden. The book absolutely refuses to offer you, the reader, any cognitive distance. You are compelled to grapple with the ethical weight of the transgression.
And that feeling of moral contamination, that's what sticks with you.
That's what sticks. It's often much more potent than the gore itself, and it contributes to the sustained anxiety and the long recovery time. Your brain is left wrestling with why you kept reading after witnessing something you feel is unforgivable.
That makes the low price point even more fascinating, really. Let's shift focus to the economics of this. How does a book that's often sold for, 99 cents on a Kindle, manage to extract such a high psychological price?
This is the commercial genius of it all. This is that affordable dread architecture we mentioned. That 99-cent digital price is a really aggressive promotional strategy.
It's all about maximizing market penetration.
Totally. It minimizes the financial risk for the buyer, right? It turns a cautious investment into a pure impulse buy.
You don't even think about it.
You don't. And by setting that barrier so low, the publisher ensures the book reaches the broadest possible demographic. That includes people who are not hardened horror veterans and are therefore potentially much more shock sensitive.
So the low financial cost actually maximizes the psychological impact just by spreading the experience to a wider, more receptive audience. And then that reaction becomes the marketing engine.
Precisely. This is where the whole TikTok phenomenon comes from. The book is marketed by its physiological outcome, the documented extreme reactions, the nausea, the inability to sleep, the reports of having to skip pages. That becomes highly shareable social currency online.
Nobody posts a video about a book that was just, pretty good.
Exactly. They post about the book that kept them awake for 2 days straight.
So it's a self-sustaining promotional cycle based entirely on documented shock value. It's a calculated risk. Sell it cheap, guarantee the experience is psychologically devastating, and the reader's trauma does all the advertising for you.
And we have to talk about how that saturation is achieved. It's not just the ideas, it's the writing itself. This is what I call the trifecta of terrifying success.
Okay, break that down for us.
First, you have Nick Cutter's expert prose. You have to remember, he's the established literary author Craig Davidson. That ensures all the repulsive content is visualized with precise, clear, almost beautiful language. It's beautifully written filth.
The quality of the writing makes the horror inescapable.
It does. You can't just dismiss it. So second, this high-quality prose combines visceral disgust, from the parasites and the body horror, with cognitive dissonance from the moral dilemmas.
And that combination is the key.
That convergence prevents the brain from being able to achieve mental sanitization or distance. If the writing were clumsy or bad, your brain could just dismiss it as genre fluff.
But because the prose is so skilled and immersive,
the anxiety is sustained and systemic.
And the novel makes sure there's no mental reprieve at the end either. The trauma lingers because the conclusion is just so hollow.
Absolutely. The ending intentionally denies you any kind of clean, heroic catharsis. Max is the final survivor, but the narrative describes his survival as completely empty of triumph.
He's left damaged.
Totally damaged. Unable to integrate back into society, treated like a leper by his peers and the authorities. This refusal of a clear, happy resolution, it just reinforces that moral burden. It contributes directly to that lasting feeling of trauma, and it demands an extended recovery period for your own cognitive system long after you've turned the last page.
So what does this all mean for you, the learner, when it comes to modern narrative construction? I mean, the Troop is really a masterclass in calculated psychological immersion.
It is. The quality of the narrative ensures the terror penetrates deeply, and the aggressive marketing ensures maximum exposure.
The publisher is essentially converting a 99-cent impulse buy into a full-blown psychological event. The true cost of the novel isn't the price tag, it's the recovery time required for your brain.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the novel demonstrates the startling commercial viability of what you could call transgressive narrative in our digital age.
What do you mean by that?
I mean, the book's capacity to induce a verifiable, shared physiological reaction becomes its most effective, self-sustaining advertisement. It proves that extreme content, if it's expertly written and ethically challenging, can convert impulse buyers into traumatized yet somehow enthusiastic reviewers who feel compelled to share their ordeal with the world.
This raises a really important question for you to mull over as you go about your day. If a book's primary value is now measured by its documented ability to cause you to lose sleep, to get sick, and to seriously question your own morality, what does that say about what we are truly hungry for in modern fiction?
I mean, is the pursuit of extreme feeling, even profoundly negative feeling, is that the last frontier of the reading experience?
Something to think about the next time a book's description promises you genuine psychological harm.
Indeed.
The deep dive is complete.